At a barbecue party hosted by Scene's workplace, I faced an unsettling situation. Scene, my husband, took every opportunity to make disparaging remarks about me. He openly criticized my lack of involvement in housework, comparing me to a parasite and expressing disdain for other men's wives. As I listened to his hurtful comments, I could feel the cold, judgmental stares of his colleagues piercing through me. Their looks stung deeply, leaving me in considerable pain. But today, I am no longer the person who stays silent. With a newfound determination, I decided to reveal the truth about Scene. The murmurs of his colleagues and the astonished expressions of his female coworkers were palpable, but it was the company president's reaction that truly shocked everyone. My name is Helen, and I'm 32 years old. I work at a variety store and have been with the company since graduation. I had always envisioned a long career there, but the stress from interpersonal conflicts eventually became too much. After 3 years, I resigned before I reached a breaking point. I took various jobs in supermarkets and bookstores, but eventually, I found my place at the variety store. This job was a dream come true for me, given my love for collecting knick-knacks. It offered the best work environment I had ever experienced, and I began to enjoy my days at work. Despite the positive changes in my professional and personal life, I faced a challenge. I was still single. As friends around me married and formed relationships, I felt the pressure to seriously consider marriage myself. However, with no men at my workplace and limited opportunities to meet new people due to my indoor hobbies, I felt stuck. I envied the couples I saw and longed to meet someone special. One day, while working at the store, a friend stopped by as a customer. With the store quiet, we started chatting and eventually discussed romance. I confessed my lack of romantic prospects, and my friend, though not interested in marriage herself, offered to set up a mixer for me. At this mixer, I met Scene, a handsome and successful man from a top company. We began dating, and after a while, he proposed. His stability, kindness, and the way he prioritized me made me feel that this was true happiness. The joy of his proposal was beyond words. As a housewife, I devoted myself to managing our home, ensuring Scene could unwind and relax when he was home. I took great care to cook Scene's favorite dishes and keep our home spotless. "Hey, this is my favorite. Did you make it?" he'd ask with a smile that brightened my day. "Yes, eat as much as you like," I'd reply, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction from his happiness. Scene would spend his holidays with me, actively helping around the house, and I felt incredibly blessed. The worries about never finding a partner seemed like a distant memory. However, a few months into our marriage, things began to change. The initial happiness faded and Scene grew distant and cold. His once warm demeanor turned into an unsettling indifference, leaving me unsure of how to handle it. "Scene, what time will you be home today?" I'd ask, only to be met with vague responses. "I don't know," he'd say, a stark contrast to his previous informative replies. Even when I inquired about his dinner preferences, he would brush it off with, "I don't need dinner tonight." I wondered if he was simply tired or overwhelmed with work. I understood the demands of a busy schedule, having experienced them myself, but Scene's job at a renowned corporation seemed beyond my comprehension. I'd send him off each morning with a cheerful "take care," but it began to feel like an irritation to him. He started showing disinterest in my cooking and would sometimes refuse the lunch I prepared. Sighing, I'd pore over my recipe books, trying to find inspiration to make meals that would please him. Yet each glance at those books only deepened my loneliness. I agonized over when we might share joyful moments again, but Scene's attitude remained unchanged and continued to worsen. For example, if he saw a slight disorder in the shoes in the closet, he'd criticize, "Can't you even line up the shoes properly?" And if he happened to eat a meal I had prepared after a long time, he'd mock, "I can't believe you'd serve something like this." He even went as far as saying, "I'd rather eat a ready meal than your cooking." The shock and disappointment I felt were profound. He used to praise my cooking and ask for seconds, but now it seemed like everything I did was wrong. The more I struggled, the more I questioned Scene's past behavior. Then, unexpectedly, Scene spoke to me, "Hey, we're having dinner with my parents in a week at a fancy restaurant. Please dress appropriately." This simple conversation made my heart leap with a mix of hope and anxiety. I was excited to meet my in-laws for the first time since Scene and I got married. We hadn't had a formal wedding, so this dinner felt like a significant occasion. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law had always seemed warm and welcoming, similar to how Scene was in the past. To prepare, I paid extra attention to my skincare and hair and bought a special outfit for the restaurant. I was eager to reunite with them. However, when I finally met them, their demeanor was strikingly different from what I had expected. They openly expressed their dissatisfaction with me. I struggled to understand why, until my mother-in-law's words made things clear. Helen, I've heard that you're always slacking off on household duties and lazing around at home. Is that true? It's fine to be a full-time housewife, but neglecting cooking and cleaning isn't acceptable. I didn't expect this from you, she said. My father-in-law echoed her sentiments, adding, there must be some misunderstanding here. Or rather, it seems Scene has been giving us incorrect information. I tried to defend myself, that's not true at all. But Scene interrupted with a scolding tone, come on, lying isn't good, you're just lazing around, aren't you? I was shocked by their perception of me. My mother-in-law continued, I was a full-time housewife too, but I worked hard every day to keep the house in order for my working husband. Don't you have any gratitude towards Scene? Before I could respond, Scene cut me off again, insisting that only he could speak to my in-laws about me. It became clear that he had deliberately conveyed misleading information. The betrayal hurt deeply. My attempts to explain were futile, and to someone who doesn't know me well, I might appear as a woman who married for financial security. The thought of being judged this way was chilling. After the dinner, I was left feeling disheartened and misunderstood. I confronted Scene about the lies he told his parents. Why did you lie? I've been working hard and cleaning every day. What are you dissatisfied with? I asked, my frustration mounting. Scene didn't answer, only telling me to be quiet. The silence that followed was heavy and disheartening. I was at a loss for how to address the misunderstanding with my in-laws and was desperate to understand why Scene's attitude had shifted so dramatically. I wished he would clearly communicate if my behavior was a problem. If not, some explanation was necessary. I felt overwhelmed with anxiety as Scene continued to avoid meaningful conversation. His behavior toward me deteriorated further. He criticized the food I cooked, made a fuss over a single strand of hair as if I never cleaned, and scolded me for simply relaxing on the sofa. Scene's return home became increasingly erratic, often coming back at midnight or not at all. Despite this, I refrained from arguing with him. He was the only partner I had ever found, and though he was distant now, I hoped he might return to the person he once was. The fear of never marrying again and potentially spending my life alone was paralyzing. The thought of divorce was terrifying, and I didn't have the courage to leave him. Around the time Scene started coming home at dawn, I noticed something troubling. A faint scent of unfamiliar women's perfume on his suit, along with traces of red lipstick. These clues made me suspect an affair. Although I had been wary of his frequent overnight stays and absences under the guise of work, the abrupt change in his behavior and these new signs only intensified my doubts. I was consumed by anger and confusion. The thought that he might be spending nights with someone else filled me with anguish. I didn't want to lose Scene, but if he was indeed cheating, that was a different matter entirely. I decided it was time to confront Scene about the truth. Hey, I need to talk to you, I said as he was unusually home on the weekend. It's really important. Despite my insistence, Scene remained engrossed in the TV, ignoring me. Are you listening? I raised my voice. What is it? Scene finally responded, clearly annoyed by my anger. Are you cheating on me? I asked directly. What? What are you talking about? He replied, feigning confusion. There's lipstick on your jacket, and I can smell women's perfume and fabric softener that's not from our house. All those times you said you were working late were lies, I pressed. C responded with a dismissive attitude. Lipstick? I don't know what you're talking about. I continued to press him. You're having an affair, aren't you? Tell me the truth. Scene's response was cold and indifferent. What does it matter to you if I had an affair? He said, as if it was of no consequence. No matter how seriously I questioned him, he just sneered and shrugged it off. Hey, answer me seriously. I've had enough, I demanded, but my frustration didn't seem to reach him. You're annoying and too persistent. I have my circumstances and you live off my money, so just listen to what I say, he retorted, then left the house. The exchange made it clear that Scene's heart was no longer in our relationship. Once I realized that, my feelings for him rapidly cooled. Why had I clung to him for so long? Continuing the marriage with someone so indifferent would only wear me down emotionally. Stirred by my newfound clarity, I decided to take action. 2 months later, I attended a barbecue organized by Scene's workplace. His company had invited employees and their families, and Scene, Having heard that other employees were bringing their families, reluctantly invited me. His parents were there, and by the time I arrived, they were already preparing the meat. Scene. I've been waiting, I greeted. Oh, you came. Helen was the one who wanted to come and kept insisting, Scene replied, causing his parents to glare at me. As the barbecue started, many people, regardless of rank, gathered around Scene. At home, he acted so differently, but in public he behaved as if we were close friends. I was furious to hear Scene speaking ill of me at the barbecue, which was supposed to be a fun event. She's really useless, he said, making disparaging remarks about me. I was certain he was doing the same at work. None of the other employees stopped him, and they all looked at me coldly. The crowd continued to gather around Scene, and it seemed the company president was among them. Scene, this is your wife, the one people have been talking about, the president remarked, with me standing right there. You have it tough, don't you? Scene didn't just accept the president's criticism, he added false claims of his own. Normally, I might have stayed silent, but today was different. Excuse me, our house is always clean, I interjected. Maybe you don't see it because you're off on sales visits, spending time at the president's daughter's house. The reaction was immediate. The employees and Scene's parents began murmuring. The president looked surprised, his eyes wide with disbelief. What are you talking about? Scene stammered, clearly flustered. Without hesitation, I spread out photos and documents on a nearby table. Scene's panic was evident as he saw the decisive evidence of his infidelity. About 2 months before this confrontation, I had hired a detective agency to gather proof of his affair. I was determined to expose him, and feeling overwhelmed by what I could do alone, I enlisted professional help. The detective provided various pieces of evidence, photos of Scene walking arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize, entering a vacation hotel with her, and going into a love nest that appeared to be her home. This woman turned out to be the president's daughter, the daughter of the president of the company Scene worked for. It was unclear how they met, but Scene frequently visited her house, suggesting a close relationship that seemed to predate our current issues. The detective noted that while further investigation was possible, his behavioral patterns were consistent, making it unlikely we find more significant evidence. Seeing these photos was a shock that dwarfed even the discovery of lipstick on Scene's suit. My anger and disappointment grew, knowing that Scene's deceit was far more extensive than I had initially feared. Hearing Scene's dismissive response, I decided to end the investigation. The next step was clear. Divorce. I couldn't continue living under the same roof as him. My heart was filled with nothing but anger. By then, I had already heard from Scene about the barbecue event. Given his behavior, I was certain he was spreading false rumors about me at work. I resolved to use the barbecue as an opportunity to reveal his deceit. I wasn't entirely sure if my plan would work, and I didn't have solid proof of what Scene was saying about me at the company. But reality unfolded exactly as I had imagined. Hey Helen, what are these photos? And why is there a picture of me with the president's daughter? Scene's face turned pale as he saw the evidence. Still trying to lie in this situation, I countered. The evidence is clear. I turned to the president. Sir, the woman in this photo is your daughter, correct? Can you confirm that? The president hesitated as he looked at the photo. In a low voice, he finally admitted, yes, that's my daughter. Scene, where did you meet my daughter? I demanded. The atmosphere, which had been friendly moments before, became tense. Scene, clearly flustered, tried to avoid the question. The president's pressure was evident, and eventually, Scene began to explain. He said he had first met the president's daughter in the company parking lot. She had come to the company on an errand, and he happened to strike up a conversation with her. Despite knowing Scene was married, the president's daughter was flattered by his attention and continued their relationship. Hearing this, I resolved to demand compensation for the emotional distress I had endured, even though she was the president's daughter. Scene was left completely crestfallen. I apologize. The daughter has her share of the blame for not refusing his advances, the president said, his voice heavy with frustration. But this situation wouldn't have occurred if you hadn't approached her. We'll discuss this further when you come to work tomorrow. Just come to my office first. Scene turned to me, desperation in his eyes. Helen, could you please forgive me? This will affect my job. Forgive you? I shot back, incredulous. Think about everything you've done. You've lied about me to the company and your parents. You've painted me as sloppy and incompetent. How can you expect forgiveness after all that? My mother-in-law, who had been listening in shock, couldn't hold back. Helen, is everything Scene has been saying true? We've heard that you're lazy and do nothing but lounge around every day. Is that true? No, I said firmly. I've been cleaning and cooking every day. Scene has complained about everything. You might not have believed me before, but look around now. No one here is supporting Scene. The president and other employees, having witnessed the truth, began to apologize. I'm sorry, Helen, the president said. I should have taken your words seriously. My in-laws, bowing their heads in apology, followed suit. The apologies were heartfelt but temporary. I could have fully forgiven them on the spot. Their behavior had deeply insulted me, and it wasn't something I could easily overlook. My anger, however, was primarily directed at Scene. I've already consulted with a lawyer, I said resolutely. I'm filing for divorce. A divorce? Why? Why do you need more reasons? Scene pleaded, his face turning ashen. No one showed him any sympathy. The following day, Scene and I went to the lawyer's office. The president's daughter was there with the president, and all the involved parties gathered for a formal discussion. As everything was set up, the lawyer began the proceedings. Scene looked dismayed, while the president's daughter wore an expression of shock. What is this? She asked. These are photos from a detective agency I hired, I explained. I suspected Scene was cheating because of the perfume smell on his suit and the lipstick marks. How could I not suspect? The president listened and nodded in understanding. Helen is seeking a divorce, asset division from Scene, and compensation for mental distress. The president's daughter, stunned, replied sharply, compensation. I've done nothing wrong. The president's daughter, clearly flustered, struggled to defend herself. I didn't do anything wrong, she said, her voice lacking conviction. The president, visibly displeased, responded sharply, you knew he was married. How can you claim no fault when you willingly engaged with him? Her response seemed immature and evasive, and she appeared unable to acknowledge her own mistakes. As Scene muttered about the divorce and asset division, the president admonished him. If you were truly remorseful, you wouldn't be making excuses. You need to face the reality of your situation. Scene hung his head in silence, clearly avoiding responsibility. I addressed him firmly. This is my final request as your wife. I need a divorce. Scene struggled with the decision, and my frustration grew. I made it clear, if you keep dragging this out, we'll end up in court. The mention of court seemed to shock Scene, and he reluctantly agreed to the divorce. The president's daughter, realizing there was no way out, agreed to the settlement, although she sought financial assistance from her father. The president, however, was resolute. I can't just give you money. You must take responsibility for your actions. Following the divorce, I received a lump sum settlement from both Scene and the president's daughter. With this money, I moved into a new apartment and began a fresh chapter in my life. After the divorce, Scene's parents and the president offered formal apologies. I learned that Scene had been dismissed from his job, largely due to the president's outrage over the affair, though officially it was due to poor conduct. The president's daughter had severed ties with him, and it was clear she wanted nothing further to do with him. Scene's downfall was complete, losing his job, his lover, and his family. Reflecting on the situation, I felt a deep sense of relief that I had exposed the truth. If I had stayed in the marriage, Scene's behavior would have continued to deteriorate, and false rumors about me would have persisted. Now, living comfortably in my new apartment, I focus on my own happiness. I work at a local variety store surrounded by things I love and feel content with my life. Sometimes, I wonder if I should have pursued the divorce sooner, but I believe waiting for the right moment was the best decision. Moving forward, I'm committed to living a life unburdened by others' influence.